Get her out.
Get out!
Now.
Now!
Gerald Whitmore doesn't lower his voice. He wants the room to hear. Who let this girl in? Security, do your job! He looks her up and down, slowly, like she's something stuck to the bottom of his shoe. Fake heiress, discount dress, zero class. The room goes quiet. Then someone snickers. The girl doesn't flinch. She's 19. She's alone. She speaks quietly, almost gently. Sir, if you'd just make one call. A call? He laughs. To confirm what? That a broke little girl crashed my party? A hand grips her arm. She doesn't pull away. She just looks at him, steady, patient, like she already knows how this ends. In exactly 40 minutes, that same room, those same people, would watch Gerald Whitmore's entire world collapse. Yeah, nobody in that room had any idea what was about to happen next. So, let's start today's story. Because what happened after that moment is the part no one saw coming. Let's rewind. 12 hours earlier, the south side of Chicago, 7 a.m. The kind of morning where the radiator clicks and hisses before the sun even touches the window. Hazel Foster is already awake. She's at the kitchen table in a small apartment on 63rd Street. A mug of black coffee steaming to her left, a highlighter in her right hand, a binder of financial reports open in front of her. 3 sticky notes mark different pages. 2 of them have question marks. One of them has a single word underlined twice. Leverage. She is 19 years old. She does not look like someone who owns anything. That's intentional. No jewelry, no designer bag by the door. Her coat is hanging on a hook near the entrance. Wool, navy, clean but clearly old. Her sneakers are by the mat, scuffed at the toe from the L-train platform she uses every single day. Her aunt, Diane Foster, moves through the kitchen behind her, pouring her own coffee, glancing over Hazel's shoulder. You eating before tonight? I'll grab something on the way. That means no. Hazel doesn't answer. She flips to the next page of the binder. Diane sets a piece of toast next to the mug without asking. Hazel eats it without looking up. This is their language. No performance, no drama. Just 2 women who have learned to take care of each other quietly. Here's what we know about Hazel at this point in the story. She's 1 semester from graduating early, double major in business finance and corporate law at the University of Illinois, Chicago. Her professors describe her as unsettlingly prepared. She works 3 shifts a week at a copy shop on South Halsted, mostly to keep her routine normal, keep her head down, keep people from asking too many questions. She has no social media presence, no LinkedIn, no digital footprint worth mentioning. Again, intentional. 3 months ago, Hazel turned 19. 2 weeks ago, she sat in the office of an attorney named Nathaniel Graves, silver-haired, steady-voiced, the kind of man who measures every word before it leaves his mouth. And she opened a sealed trust her mother had left behind. Her mother, Gloria Foster, died when Hazel was 11. Breast cancer, stage 4, diagnosed late. She was gone in 8 months. What Gloria left behind wasn't a house, wasn't savings, wasn't jewelry or furniture or anything you could hold. What she left was a document, sealed, notarized, with a single instruction on the outside, written in her handwriting. Open when Hazel is 19 and has completed 1 year of financial study. Not before. Trust Nathaniel. Hazel had trusted Nathaniel. She'd waited 8 years. When she finally opened that envelope, she read it twice. Then she folded it carefully, placed it back inside, and sat in silence for a long moment. Then she said, "Okay, how do we do this?" She has told no one what was inside. Not Diane, not a single classmate. Nobody. Now let's talk about the other side of tonight. 40 miles north, in a lakefront penthouse with floor-to-ceiling windows and a view that costs more per month than most people earn in a year, Gerald Whitmore is getting dressed. He's 58, silver-haired in a way that looks expensive. His cufflinks are monogrammed. His watch is the kind that doesn't need to announce its price, because everyone in the room already knows. Gerald built Whitmore Capital Group into one of the Midwest's largest private equity firms over 20 years. He's been on 3 magazine covers. He has a senator's personal cell number saved under a first name. He is charming in public, surgical in private. His wife, Carolyn Whitmore, sits at the vanity behind him, pressing a diamond earring into place. She catches his eye in the mirror. "The Tribune is sending someone tonight," she says. "Good," Gerald says. "Let them watch." He straightens his tie, checks his reflection one last time. Tonight is his night, his announcement, his room. He has no idea a 19-year-old girl is on the L train right now, binder in her lap, heading straight toward him. The Sterling Crown Hotel sits on Michigan Avenue like it owns the street. And tonight, it basically does. Valets in white gloves, a red carpet that isn't technically a red carpet, but might as well be. Black SUVs lined up along the curb, engines idling, drivers staring at phones. Through the glass revolving doors, the lobby glitters. Marble floors, fresh orchids, the low hum of a string quartet already warming up inside the ballroom. The air smells of expensive cologne and fresh flowers and the particular kind of money that doesn't need to introduce itself. This is Gerald Whitmore's world, built to impress, designed to intimidate, every detail saying the same thing. You belong here only if I say so. Hazel steps out of an Uber at 6:52 p.m. She smooths the front of her navy gown. Simple. Elegant, nothing flashy. No diamonds, no statement piece, just clean lines and good posture. She's carrying a small clutch. Inside, her phone, her ID, and one folded document she hopes she won't need to open tonight. She takes one breath of cold Chicago air. Then she walks through the revolving doors without hesitating. The lobby hits her in waves. Perfume, champagne, the murmur of 100 conversations happening at once. A woman in a fur stole laughs too loudly near the fountain. 2 men in identical charcoal suits shake hands like they're sealing a deal right there in the entrance. A photographer near the ballroom doors keeps flashing his camera at couples who pause just long enough to be seen. Hazel doesn't look at any of it. She walks straight to the registration desk. The attendant is young, maybe 22, wearing the hotel's burgundy uniform with a name tag that says Tyler. He smiles automatically when Hazel approaches. Professional. Practiced. Then he looks down at his printed guest list. Name? Hazel Foster. Tyler runs his finger down the list. Once, twice. A small crease forms between his eyebrows. He flips to the second page. I'm sorry, I'm not seeing. Could you spell that? Foster. He checks again. The crease deepens. His smile is thinning at the edges now, the particular discomfort of someone caught between 2 forces they can't fully read. I don't see Foster here. Are you perhaps a +1 under another name? No, I'm listed independently. Please contact Edmund Raines. He'll confirm. Tyler blinks. Edmund Raines is the board chairman, the kind of name that makes junior hotel staff go very still. He reaches slowly for the phone behind the desk, but before his hand gets there, a voice cuts across the lobby like a blade through silk. Tyler, what's the holdup?
Gerald Whitmore is crossing the marble floor toward them, champagne flute already in hand, tuxedo immaculate, smile already deployed for the senator he'd just been charming across the room. He's moving with the easy confidence of a man who has never once questioned whether a room belongs to him. He's not looking at Hazel yet. He's looking at Tyler with the mild impatience of someone who expects frictionless evenings and considers any friction a personal insult. Tyler straightens immediately. "Sir, this guest isn't on the list. She was asking me to call Mr. Raines." Gerald turns. He looks at Hazel. The smile doesn't disappear. It shifts, becomes something colder, something that isn't really a smile at all anymore, just the shape of one. He takes her in, slowly, deliberately. The navy gown, the small clutch, her age, her face, her blackness. His eyes do the entire calculation in about 2 seconds, and he doesn't bother hiding a single step of it.
"Who invited you?" His tone is pleasant, conversational. That's the worst part about it. He says it the way you'd ask someone where they bought their shoes, like the answer is already obvious and already amusing. "I have a standing invitation through the board," Hazel says. Calm, even, no edge, no defensiveness. "If you'd allow Tyler to call Mr. Raines—" "A standing invitation." Gerald repeats the words slowly, like they taste funny in his mouth. He glances around. A handful of nearby guests have already clocked the exchange. A couple near the fountain has stopped mid-conversation. A woman in a green dress is watching over the rim of her champagne flute with carefully disguised interest. Gerald clocks the audience, and then he makes a choice. He doesn't lower his voice. He raises it. "Get her out, now." The lobby goes sharp, quiet in that specific way that means everyone heard, but no one wants to admit it. "Who let this girl in? Security, do your job." He looks Hazel up and down one more time, slowly, deliberately, like she's an inconvenience he's already bored of. Fake heiress, discount dress, zero class. 3 phrases, 3 bullets, fired with a smile still on his face, champagne still in his hand, like this costs him absolutely nothing. Because to him, it doesn't. For a half-second, the lobby holds its breath, and then someone near the fountain snickers. Then another person. A ripple of uncomfortable laughter moves through the marble entrance like a current through shallow water. Not everyone laughs, but enough do. Enough to make the silence of the ones who don't feel very loud. Carolyn Whitmore materializes at Gerald's elbow. White gown, diamonds at her throat, expression precisely calibrated to neutral. She murmurs something low into his ear. He waves her off without looking, the way you'd wave off a fly. Then Carolyn turns toward Hazel. And she smiles, wide, gracious, the practiced smile of a woman who has attended 1,000 events exactly like this one. She reaches for a passing waiter's tray, lifts a glass of red wine, and in one smooth, unhurried movement, tips it directly onto the front of Hazel's navy gown. "Oh," Carolyn says softly, "how clumsy of me." The wine spreads dark and immediate across the fabric. Someone gasps. Carolyn is already turning away, pressing her fingertips to her lips in a performance of concern so thin it barely qualifies as an attempt. Hazel looks down at her ruined gown. Then she looks up. She doesn't say a word. 2 security guards are already moving, big men, earpieces in, the practiced blank expressions of people paid to not have opinions about what they're doing. The first guard reaches Hazel. His hand closes around her upper arm, not violent, but firm and final. The kind of grip that doesn't ask permission. Hazel doesn't pull away, doesn't raise her voice, doesn't look at the guard at all. She looks directly at Gerald Whitmore. Steady, patient, almost, and this is the part that clearly unsettles him, just for a flicker, almost amused. "Sir, one call. That's all I'm asking." A call? Gerald's laugh is full now, performed for the crowd that's formed. To confirm what? That a broke little girl crashed my party? The guards walk her toward the side exit. Her heels click across the marble in a slow, even rhythm. The string quartet in the ballroom hits a new movement. Someone has already gone back to their champagne. The show, apparently, is over. But in the far corner of the lobby, half hidden behind a potted palm, a woman in a black dress with a press lanyard hanging around her neck has her phone raised. Sandra Cole, investigative reporter for the Chicago Financial Tribune. Her recorder app is already running. Her eyes are very still and very focused. She watches Hazel get walked to the side exit. She watches Gerald straighten his lapels and turn back toward the ballroom with the satisfied expression of a man who just handled something minor. Sandra doesn't follow Gerald. She follows Hazel. Outside, the November air hits like a wall, cold, sharp, carrying the faint smell of the lake 2 blocks west. The side exit opens onto a narrow service walkway. A single bench sits under a yellow security light. The guard releases Hazel's arm, steps back inside. The door closes with a heavy click. Hazel stands in the cold for exactly 3 seconds. Then she sits down, opens her clutch, takes out her phone, and dials. It rings twice. "Nathaniel, it's time. Bring the folder." She hangs up, folds her hands in her lap. The wine stain on her gown is already drying at the edges. She doesn't look at it. She waits. Inside the ballroom, Gerald Whitmore owns the night. The Sterling Crown's Grand Ballroom is everything the lobby promised and more. Vaulted ceilings, 3 crystal chandeliers throwing warm gold light across 200 round tables, each set with white linen and centerpieces that cost more than most people's monthly rent. The room smells of roasted lamb and expensive candles, and the particular warmth of a crowd that has been drinking good wine for 40 minutes. Gerald takes the podium at 7:15 p.m. He doesn't rush. Men like Gerald never rush. They arrive, and the room adjusts to them. 20 years ago, he begins, his voice rolling smooth and practiced through the microphone, I sat in a borrowed office with a borrowed desk, and I made a decision. I decided this city needed someone willing to bet on its future. Applause. Easy, warm, reflexive. Tonight, I'm announcing the next chapter of that bet. A $400 million expansion into renewable energy infrastructure across the Midwest. More applause. Louder this time. A board member near the front table nods approvingly. 2 senators exchange a glance. Sandra Cole, who has slipped back inside and positioned herself near the press area, does not applaud. She is watching the door. Gerald continues. He is good at this. The pauses, the eye contact, the self-deprecating joke dropped in exactly the right place to make powerful men feel comfortable. He talks about legacy. He talks about ownership. He makes a passing joke about keeping the wrong people out and the right people in. And a section of the room laughs, and Gerald smiles, because he knows exactly what he just said, and he knows exactly that he can say it. Sandra Cole does not laugh. At the back of the room, a door opens quietly. Nathaniel Graves steps inside. He is 61 years old, silver-haired, wearing a dark suit that is well made but not showy. He carries a leather briefcase. Old, worn at the corners, the kind that has been to a lot of rooms like this one and has never once been impressed by any of them. He doesn't look at the podium. He scans the room with the calm efficiency of a man who already knows what he's looking for. He finds Edmund Raines at a table near the left wall. Edmund is 70, the kind of old-money Chicago that doesn't need to announce itself. White-haired, straight-backed, the board chairman who has known Gerald Whitmore for 15 years and has made a great deal of money standing beside him. Nathaniel crosses the room without hurrying. He reaches Edmund's table, leans down, and speaks very quietly into his ear. Edmund's fork stops moving. He sets it down on his plate with a small, precise click. He turns to look at Nathaniel. Nathaniel opens the briefcase just enough to show Edmund the top document inside. Edmund reads the first 3 lines. His face does not collapse. Men like Edmund don't collapse in public, but something behind his eyes goes very, very still. He folds his napkin, places it on the table, excuses himself from his dinner companion with a murmur and a hand on the shoulder. Then he and Nathaniel walk together toward the lobby. At the podium, Gerald is mid-sentence when he catches the movement. His eyes follow Edmund to the door. His rhythm breaks, barely, just a half beat, and then recovers. He keeps talking, but his eyes go to the door one more time. Outside, Edmund pushes through the side exit and stops when he sees Hazel. He looks at her for a long moment. The wine stain on her gown, her composed expression, her hands folded in her lap. "Miss Foster," he says quietly. "Mr. Raines," she says. He offers his arm. She stands, smooths her gown, and takes it. They walk back inside together. Gerald sees them enter from the stage. He sees Edmund Raines, his board chairman, his ally of 15 years, escorting a 19-year-old girl in a stained navy gown through the main ballroom doors. His sentence dies somewhere in his throat. He recovers barely. "Edmund, what are—" Edmund, from across the room, his voice carrying cleanly. "My apologies, Gerald. There is a matter requiring your immediate attention." "Can it wait? We're in the middle of—" "No." One word, flat, final, zero room for negotiation. The microphone picks it up perfectly. 300 people hear it. The room shifts. That particular shift, when a crowd senses that the thing happening at the edges of their vision is suddenly more interesting than the thing at the center. Gerald's smile holds. Barely. 5 minutes, he says, with a lightness he absolutely does not feel. He hands the microphone to his events director and steps off the stage. The private conference room is off the main corridor. Windowless, a long oak table, 8 chairs, the faint smell of old wood and recycled air. The door closes behind them with a soft, definitive sound. Gerald, Edmund, Nathaniel, Carolyn, who is followed without being invited, and Hazel, who sits down at the far end of the table with the quiet ease of someone who booked the room. Gerald remains standing. He loosens nothing. Not his tie, not his expression, not his posture. All right, what is this? Who is she, and why is she sitting at my table? Nathaniel sets his briefcase on the oak surface, opens it, removes a document folder, thick, tabbed, bound with a blue rubber band, and slides it across the table toward Gerald. Gerald doesn't touch it. Whatever's in there, Preston Holt will handle it Monday morning. I'm not going to be ambushed in the middle of my own event by a folder and a... Preston Holt drew up the original documents, Nathaniel says evenly. He may want a moment before he advises you. The sentence lands like a stone dropped into still water. Carolyn looks at Gerald. Gerald looks at Nathaniel. The air in the room tightens, the way it does before a storm, when the pressure drops and every living thing feels it before they understand it. "What original documents?" Gerald says. Not a question, the tone of a man buying time. Edmund reaches across and opens the folder himself. He reads the first page, then the second. He stops, takes off his glasses, rubs the bridge of his nose once, puts them back on. "Gerald," he says quietly, "sit down." "I'm not going to." "Sit down." Gerald sits. Nathaniel opens his laptop and turns it toward the room. On the screen, an audio file, a waveform, a date stamp from 14 years ago. "Before I play this," Nathaniel says, "I want to give you the opportunity to confirm the documents voluntarily. It will matter later that you did." Gerald's jaw tightens. "Play whatever you want. My attorneys will tear it apart by Tuesday." Nathaniel presses play. The room fills with a voice. Gerald's voice. Younger, rougher, stripped of its current polish, every syllable clean and clear. "Gloria, if you save me on this, if you put in that 2.3 million and keep quiet about it, 51% is yours. Yours and your kids, forever. You have my word." Silence. Carolyn's hand, resting on the back of a chair, goes white at the knuckles. Edmund doesn't look at Gerald. Gerald stares at the laptop screen. The waveform has gone flat. The only sound now is the faint throb of ballroom music seeping through the walls. 300 people still eating roasted lamb, completely unaware that the ground just opened up in this room. Gerald's voice, when it finally comes, is very quiet. That recording, there's no chain of custody, you can't just walk in here with an audio file and... Nathaniel reaches into the briefcase, places a second document on the table, then a third, then a fourth. Each one tabbed, notarized, dated. "Chain of custody," he says, tapping the second. "Original equity agreement," the third. "Transfer of interest upon death of Gloria Foster with heir designation," the fourth. 3 notarized copies of each. One is already with the SEC. One is with the Illinois Attorney General's office. This is the third. He folds his hands and says nothing more. Edmund Raines looks at Gerald Whitmore. 15 years of alliance, of handshakes, of shared dinners and shared benefit, and says the 6 words that close the door on all of it. "Gerald, we need to stop the announcement." Bro, I'm not gonna lie, this part is crazy to me. Gerald was just on stage 20 minutes ago, talking like he built the whole legacy himself. Whole speech and everything. Like, yeah, sure. Meanwhile, this 19-year-old girl is outside in the cold, wine all over her dress, and she's just sitting there chilling. Not panicking, not calling anyone. And I'm sitting here like, wait, you're telling me she already knew what was in that folder? For 2 weeks? Yeah, nah. That's wild. The room is very still. Gerald is staring at the 4th document like he can change what it says by looking at it hard enough. His champagne flute is still on the table where he set it when he sat down. The condensation has formed a small ring on the oak surface. Nobody moves to wipe it. Nathaniel speaks first, quietly, methodically. The way a man speaks when he has rehearsed this moment for a very long time and wants to get every word exactly right. 14 years ago, Whitmore Capital Group was 48 days from insolvency. Gerald says nothing. The 2009 financial crisis had collapsed 3 of your primary fund positions simultaneously. Your personal credit lines were exhausted. 2 board members had already submitted resignation letters. You had no viable path forward. Still nothing from Gerald, but his breathing has changed, shorter, shallower, audible in the silence. A woman named Gloria Foster contacted you through a mutual financial contact. She was 34 years old, a self-made investor who had spent 8 years building a private portfolio, carefully, quietly, without anyone's help. She had $2.3 million in liquid capital, and she believed, genuinely believed, that your company had long-term value worth saving. Hazel is looking at the table, not at Gerald. At the table, at a specific point in the wood grain, like she's reading something only she can see. Her jaw is set, her hands are still. Gloria Foster gave you that money, Nathaniel continues, not as a loan, not as a favor, as an investment, in exchange for a 51% equity stake in Whitmore Capital Group, to be held silently, meaning no public disclosure, no board seat, no active role, for as long as she chose. The agreement included one specific clause. He taps the third document. Upon Gloria's death, the full 51% stake would transfer automatically and irrevocably to her designated heir. He pauses. Gloria Foster died 11 years ago. Her designated heir was her daughter. Every eye in the room moves to Hazel. She looks up from the table. She looks at Gerald. And she says, evenly, without drama, without performance, "That's me." Gerald's mouth opens, closes, opens again. This isn't... There were superseding agreements. There were subsequent restructuring documents that would have... There were not, Nathaniel says. We anticipated that argument. The equity agreement contains an explicit anti-dilution clause protecting the original stake against any subsequent restructuring, recapitalization, or reissuance of shares without the written consent of the majority stakeholder. Gloria never gave that consent, which means every restructuring you conducted over the past 11 years without notifying the majority stakeholder was conducted in violation of the original agreement. Preston Holt's name sits in the air between them like a ghost. Gerald's own attorney. The man who drafted every one of those restructuring documents. The man who knew exactly what clause he was working around, and did it anyway. Edmund is on his feet now. He has the 4th document in his hand, and he is reading it for the 2nd time, slowly, like a man who needs to be completely certain before he says what he's about to say. He sets it down. Hazel Foster, Edmund says, and his voice has shifted, the casual tone of a dinner companion gone entirely, replaced by something formal, precise, the voice of a board chairman performing an official function. According to these documents, which I am formally acknowledging as presented to this board, you hold 51% of the outstanding equity in Whitmore Capital Group. He looks at Gerald. She's not a guest tonight, Gerald. She's the majority shareholder. Carolyn makes a sound, small, involuntary, swiftly suppressed. Gerald's champagne flute tips. He catches it, barely, his hand shaking just enough to slosh liquid over the rim and onto his perfectly pressed cuff. He stares at the wet fabric, stares at it like it's the only thing in the room his brain can currently process. Hazel stands up. She doesn't raise her voice. She doesn't smile. She speaks the way her mother taught her, or the way she imagines her mother would have. Clearly, with the particular authority of someone who has earned every syllable. My mother kept her word. She kept every document, every recording, every communication. She never came after you, not because she couldn't, because she believed people should have the chance to do right on their own. She lets that sit for exactly 1 beat. I waited until I was ready. I'm ready now. Gerald tries one last time, the voice of a drowning man reaching for anything. You're 19 years old. You have no operational experience, no board history, no... This company is worth $400 million. You can't just walk in here and... I'm not walking in anywhere, Hazel says quietly. I've been here the whole time. You just didn't know it. Edmund picks up his phone. He dials, puts it on speaker. One by one, 4 other board members confirm what is already confirmed. Each voice calm, each voice is certain. The room fills with the sound of a structure that took 20 years to build, recognizing, formally, officially, irrevocably, who it actually belongs to. Gerald Whitmore sits in his chair. Hazel Foster stands at the end of the table. The door to the conference room is slightly ajar. In the hallway outside, Sandra Cole's recorder app is still running. Every word is clean. Every word is clear. Edmund Raines walks back into the ballroom alone. The room is still humming. Dessert has been served. The string quartet has shifted to something lighter. A few couples have drifted toward the small dance floor near the back. 300 people having a very good evening, completely unaware that the company they came to celebrate just changed hands in a windowless conference room 40 feet away. Edmund reaches the podium. He adjusts the microphone, clears his throat once. Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for the interruption. Tonight's primary announcement has been postponed, pending an urgent board review. We thank you for your attendance and your continued support of Whitmore Capital. That's it. No explanation, no elaboration. The room doesn't laugh this time. It murmurs, low, confused, the particular murmur of powerful people who don't like being in rooms where they don't understand what's happening. 2 board members are already on their feet, moving toward Edmund before he's even stepped away from the microphone. He shows them the first page of the document folder quietly, without fanfare. The first board member reads it, looks up at Edmund, looks back down. The second doesn't finish reading before he takes out his phone. Back in the conference room, Gerald is on his feet again, pacing now, 3 steps to the wall, 3 steps back, his hand pressed to his mouth. His events director has texted him twice. His publicist has called once. He hasn't answered anything. Preston Holt is on speakerphone in the corner, Gerald's voice dropping to an urgent, frantic rasp. Preston, tell me there's something. Tell me there's a filing, a restructuring clause, anything. Holt's voice comes through flat and careful, the voice of an attorney who has just understood the full shape of his own exposure. Gerald, if those documents are authentic, and from what you're describing, they sound authentic, then the equity agreement is airtight. The anti-dilution clause alone makes every restructuring since Gloria's death potentially contestable. You have a serious problem. Fix it. I drafted them. I can't undraft them. Silence on Gerald's end. The kind of silence that is actually very loud. Then what am I paying you for? Holt doesn't answer that. After a moment, he says, quietly, "You need new counsel. Tonight. I'm recusing myself, effectively, immediately." The line goes dead. Gerald stands in the middle of the conference room holding his phone. His tuxedo is still immaculate. His cufflinks are still monogrammed. His watch is still worth more than most people's cars. But something about the way he's standing, slightly forward, slightly collapsed at the shoulders, makes all of it look like a costume. Carolyn appears in the doorway. She has her wrap over her arm and her evening bag in her hand. She looks at Gerald for a long moment, not with anger, not with sympathy, with the careful, assessing expression of a woman who has been doing quiet math of her own for a very long time and has just arrived at her final number. She doesn't say anything to Gerald. She turns to Hazel, who is standing near the window. A long look. Something passes between them, not warmth exactly, but a kind of recognition, woman to woman. Then Carolyn turns and walks out of the conference room without looking back. Some exits don't need words. Near the ballroom's side exit, the 2 security guards from earlier are still posted at their station, earpieces in, hands clasped, faces professionally blank. Edmund approaches them and speaks quietly. They will need to provide written accounts of the evening's events for the board record. Standard procedure. No accusation in his voice, just the calm administrative reality of what comes next. The first guard nods. The second, the one who gripped Hazel's arm, stares at the floor for a moment. Then he looks up. His jaw works like he's trying to find the right configuration of words. Hazel passes them on her way back toward the lobby. She glances at the second guard. He opens his mouth. "I'm sorry, miss." She stops, looks at him, really looks at him, the way she looked at Gerald in the lobby, except completely different. "You were doing your job," she says. "I know that." She walks on. The guard watches her go. He unclenches his hands, breathes out slowly through his nose. In the lobby, Sandra Cole is waiting with her recorder still running and her notebook open. Hazel stops beside her, looks straight ahead at the revolving doors. The same doors she walked through 2 hours ago, alone, certain, carrying a folded document she hoped she wouldn't need. "Now," Hazel says quietly, "you can ask your questions." The story breaks at 6 a.m. the next morning. Sandra Cole's piece runs on the front page of the Chicago Financial Tribune digital edition. Headline in bold, no ambiguity, no hedging. Heiress ejected from own company's gala, holds majority stake. Below the headline, a photograph of Hazel sitting on that bench outside the Sterling Crown. Navy gown, wine stain visible, phone to her ear. Calm. Completely calm. Sandra had taken it without asking, and Hazel had seen her do it and said nothing. Below the photograph, a transcript. Gerald's voice from the live microphone in the lobby. Every word. Fake heiress, discount dress, zero class. 3 phrases, printed in quotation marks. Sitting there on the page for the entire city to read with their morning coffee. By 8 a.m., the story has been picked up by the Associated Press. By 10 a.m., it's on cable news. By noon, the clip of Gerald at the lobby microphone, captured on at least 6 different phones, uploaded overnight, has been viewed 4 million times. The phrase fake heiress is trending nationally. Not the way Gerald would have wanted. His own post, the one he'd put up the night before, the photo of Hazel outside the hotel, the caption, "Crashed my event tonight, kids these days," is still live on his social media. It is being screenshot and reshared faster than his publicist can process what's happening. By the time someone on his team thinks to delete it, it has been saved by approximately 40,000 people. It will be entered into evidence 4 months later. Inside the Whitmore Capital Group offices on the 42nd floor of a glass tower on Wacker Drive, the phones don't stop. Board members who were eating roasted lamb and clapping for Gerald's speech 12 hours ago are now in emergency calls with their own attorneys. 2 institutional investors submit formal inquiries before the markets open. One senator's office, the one whose handshake Gerald had been so proud of, issues a statement saying they are monitoring the situation closely. Gerald does not come into the office. The board convenes an emergency session 72 hours after the gala. The conference room this time is the official one. 42nd floor, glass walls overlooking the Chicago River, a table long enough to seat 16. Hazel arrives with Nathaniel Graves. She is wearing a charcoal blazer, dark trousers, her hair pulled back. No jewelry, no performance. She sits down, opens her binder, and waits.
The vote to formally verify her shareholder standing takes 11 minutes. It is unanimous. Her 51% stake is entered into the official corporate record with a date, a timestamp, and the signature of every board member present. Gerald is placed on immediate administrative leave pending a full shareholder ethics investigation. He is escorted from the building by 2 members of building security. Not his security. Not the friendly faces he's known for years. Building security. Strangers. He carries a banker's box with a few personal items from his office. His monogrammed cufflinks catch the light as he passes through the lobby. Nobody holds the door. The investigation moves quickly. Faster than Gerald's new attorneys expected. Faster than anyone outside the board anticipated. Because the evidence isn't hidden. It was never hidden. It was filed, notarized, time-stamped, and sitting in Nathaniel Graves' office for 11 years, waiting for Hazel to turn 19. The board's outside counsel, retained separately, no conflicts of interest, pulls the full paper trail within 2 weeks. What they find is not complicated. Gerald had received formal notification of the equity transfer twice, once when Gloria died, once 3 years later when the trust was first activated by Nathaniel's office. Both times, Gerald had forwarded the notification to his assistant with the same 3-word instruction: file, no action. Both original emails are recovered. Both are printed. Both are added to the evidence file. This is not a paperwork error. This is not an oversight. This is a man who looked at a legal obligation to a dead woman's child and decided twice that it didn't apply to him. The SEC opens a formal investigation within 30 days of the gala. The charge: willful concealment of a material shareholder interest, a violation of both Illinois corporate law and federal securities disclosure requirements. Gerald's legal fees begin accumulating at a rate that would make most people physically ill. 14 months after the night he stood at a live microphone and said "fake heiress" to a 19-year-old girl he had never met, Gerald Whitmore sits in a federal courtroom in downtown Chicago and listens to a judge read a civil verdict. Liable. On all counts. Breach of fiduciary duty, securities fraud, willful concealment of shareholder interest. The civil judgment: $18.6 million in damages, payable to the Whitmore Capital Trust, which Hazel, as majority shareholder, now controls. The SEC penalty: $4.2 million. And a permanent bar from serving as an officer or director of any publicly traded company. Ever. The criminal referral comes 2 months later. Federal prosecutors file a single count of securities fraud. Gerald's attorneys negotiate. He pleads guilty to avoid trial. The sentence? 36 months probation. 500 hours of community service.
And, the part his attorneys fought hardest against and lost, a mandatory public statement to be read in full at a press conference, on camera, with the media present. The press conference is held on a Tuesday morning in March. Gerald stands at a podium. No champagne flute this time, no monogrammed cufflinks, no senator in the front row. His new attorney stands one step behind him. The room is full of cameras. He reads from a prepared statement, his voice flat, his eyes on the paper. I acknowledge that I am properly concealed shareholder documentation belonging to the estate of Gloria Foster and her designated heir, Hazel Foster. I acknowledge that my actions on the night of the Whitmore Capital Gala were wrong. I offer no excuse. He does not look up. Not once. In the back row of the press conference, in a charcoal blazer and dark trousers, Hazel Foster watches him read. She has a notebook open in her lap. Habit, always the notebook. But she isn't writing anything. She doesn't need to. The first question from the press goes to Sandra Cole, who has been in the front row since the doors opened. She looks up from her recorder. She looks at Gerald, and she asks, clearly, into the silence of the room. Mr. Whitmore, do you remember using the words fake heiress on the night of the gala? Gerald's hands tighten on the podium. Yes, he says, I remember. 6 months after the verdict, the board votes on a new name. The motion passes 14-0. Effective immediately, Whitmore Capital Group is renamed Foster Capital Group. Not because Hazel requested it, but because the board did. Because sometimes institutions need to make a visible break from what they were in order to become what they should be. Hazel does not make a speech about it. She sends an email to the full board with 2 agenda items for the next meeting. That's it. That's how she marks the moment. Her first official act as acting chair is not a press release or a photo opportunity. It is a wire transfer. $5 million from the Foster Capital Group Operating Fund, established as a permanent endowment in the name of Gloria Foster. The endowment funds full scholarships for first-generation business students at 3 HBCUs. No application essay required, no interview. Just proof of enrollment and proof that nobody in your family has done this before. Her second act is a board policy, written, voted on, entered into the official corporate governance record. All future board nominations must include candidates from underrepresented backgrounds. Not as a quota, not as charity, as a structural requirement, because the board had spent 15 years looking like the guest list at Gerald Whitmore's gala, and Hazel had seen exactly what that produced. Both measures pass unanimously. She still takes the L train sometimes, not always. There are car services now. There are meetings that run late. There are mornings when the 42nd floor needs her earlier than the train allows. But sometimes, on a clear morning when the lake is flat and the city feels like it's just waking up, she takes the L from 63rd Street to the Loop and sits with her binder open in her lap and her coffee in her hand, and her coat, still wool, still navy, still a little worn at the cuffs, pulled around her shoulders. She is still 19. On one of those mornings, she comes home to find Diane watching the evening news. The segment is about the Foster Capital Group rebrand. Stock footage of the building on Wacker Drive, the new lobby signage, a 30-second clip of Hazel's first official press statement. Diane has the volume low. She doesn't turn it up when Hazel comes in. Hazel sets down her bag, sits next to her aunt on the couch. They watch the segment together in silence.
When it ends, Diane picks up the remote and turns off the television.
Your mama
she says quietly, would have thought this was absolutely hilarious. Hazel laughs. It is the first time in this entire story that she laughs. Full, real, unguarded. It fills the small apartment on 63rd Street and disappears into the walls. And for just a moment, the radiator clicks and the city hums outside, and everything is exactly what it should be. Hey, yeah, Hazel's story is fiction. But that moment in the lobby, someone grabbing her arm, people laughing like she didn't belong. That part? Yeah, that's real. I've seen stuff like that. And let's be honest, that folder didn't suddenly make her worthy of respect. She already was. People just didn't bother seeing it. The question I want to leave you with is this. You were in that lobby tonight. Maybe not physically, but you've been in a version of it. You've watched someone get dismissed, talked over, walked out. And in that moment, you had a choice. Pull out your phone like Sandra Cole, say something, do something, or go back to your champagne. What did you do? What would you do? Drop it in the comments. I genuinely want to know. And if this story hit you somewhere real, share it. Someone in your life needs to see it. If you want more stories like this one, the ones that start with injustice and refuse to end there, subscribe, because we are just getting started. Gloria Foster saved a company once. Her daughter saved it again. The difference is, this time, everybody knows.